So it's Tuesday, you cursed. It's the day after the long weekend. No more vacation time. Everybody's back to work. Of course, the campaigns never stopped working. And the curse of politics never stopped working. We were here yesterday, and here we are again today. So welcome to the show with Scott Reid, Jenni Byrne.
Hello.
Hello.
Scott, do you have a vehicle?
I have a rental vehicle that's as red as a fire engine. It's big and red, and I don't know how to operate it, but I'm getting by.
Yeah. Well, I didn't mention this to you yesterday, but I smashed up my car on the weekend.
Which car?
I rear-ended somebody and smashed my car up, and I also have a rental vehicle, and it's a Ford F-150. And I just want to say it's not a political statement at all.
Yeah, but it's a sweet ride, isn't it, David? You're like
it is a sweet ride. It was the only rental vehicle available.
You could maybe compete for some votes in Fort McMurray. I mean, come on, give it a whirl.
I'm going to get out there. That's right, and take on the People's Party. Nick, how are you this morning?
Great. I have tentatively good news that I won't spill the details on, but I think I might be hitting the road soon, guys.
Wow,
man,
awesome!
Right on.
It's a teaser. I might be leaving the National Capital Region,
like AC/DC, back out there meeting the people.
That's right.
All right, what's in the playbook this morning?
So this morning we decided, I guess, that we were tired of the campaign a little bit, just wanted a bit of a breather. So we wanted to talk to a lot of people who were super duper happy about politics. So we talked about them. We talked about Scott McCord with a whole bunch of people. A name that I'd heard floating around for a while, but having not ever worked for anyone important enough to have to get somewhere really, really quickly, I'd never had to, get into this man's particular orbit. But man, was it fun. Like Scott McCord, I mean, most of your listeners, many of them would probably know this man's legend. But for those who don't, he's kind of like the travel agent to the political class and has been forever. And man, my DMs yesterday were full of generations of PMO staffers. It was unbelievable. Yeah. And everybody just says, in the heat of this campaign, who cares about that? Let's just talk about Scott for a little bit. And he's described with about 45 different adjectives, all of them amazing. Amazing is not one of them. It's not strong enough for a lot of people to describe him. But anyway, it was just a blast to get a sense of...
Are people talking enough about how Scott Reid, forget him.
Yeah, no,
Scott McCord makes airline rules disappear?
He's a wizard. He is an absolute sorcerer. You call him at 2:00 in the morning. I'm in Vienna. I'm hungover. I've got no shoes and one sock. My cell phone has 30 minutes of battery life. My passport's missing. And I want to be at home in bed at 8 p.m. And Scott says, "You're a fucking asshole," and then makes it happen. He bends the laws of physics.
And he'll tell you, there are times I'd call Scott and I'd be like, okay, I need to hopscotch around the country, and I think this is the best route. And he's like, well, that's stupid. I'll book that for you, but I'll also book the route I think is better, because eventually you'll do that anyways. And eventually I would always do what he had suggested.
And the other thing that I heard was that he obviously loves politics, and everybody tells him everything, and he is just the city's vault. He is like the Bank of Canada vault in the Diefenbunker. No, well, that might be a bad example, because I'm not sure how vaulty that vault really would have been. But he's the guy everyone trusts.
He doesn't say shit about anything to anybody. No.
Yeah.
Never.
Amazing.
Amazing. Well, that's fun. You had a fun day then, and I hope you did a nice tribute to Scott in the playbook this morning, because he's a remarkable part of Ottawa. Once you use Scott McCord's travel services, you will never do anything else again.
It sounds like an advertisement
what else you got?
but I mean, it's worth it, right? Like, you can't help it.
What's happening today?
The leaders today are sort of filtering towards Ottawa for the obvious reason. There's a couple of debates happening across the river at the Museum of History this week. So they're making their way here, including the Green Party leader leaving Toronto for the first time this campaign, coming to Ottawa. Hold for
leaving
applause.
Toronto. Leaving Toronto, I think that was a Guess Who
Target
song,
riding
wasn't it?
is the target riding in Ottawa for the Green Party is.
I think the target riding is there's a debate here.
She'll have to appear in a riding with a candidate, though, right? So what does she do? Where does she go?
Probably Ottawa Center. David Chernyshenko, didn't he? That's the seat he used to always run in. He was the leader before Elizabeth May.
I guess you would think.
Well, where else is she going to go, Scott?
Canada. Get to Canada. She can march in the rain with Pierre. Let's get busy, bitches. Let's go. That was a weird video, Pierre.
She probably had to leave early because the Green Party won't pay her way to Ottawa or something.
She's carpooling back.
No kidding.
So other than her, what's going on?
Well, Trudeau's in
Where
Montreal.
are people assaulting the Prime Minister today?
Yeah, Trudeau's in Montreal. That's where he's starting anyway, and then he's coming here. There's not a lot happening on the national travel front.
All right, then
Which is
we'll
why I
get
get
into
to
the
leave
wheels
town, I
within
think.
wheels. You need to get out of town. All right, Nick. Thank you for this.
Yep.
We'll see you
next time.
see you tomorrow morning. Yeah.
So long.
Thank you, Politico. Thank you, Nick.
Bye.
Right. 4-day roll.
Movement, David.
Here.
Movement.
Give it to us. Give it to us.
Slip sliding away. Slip sliding away. You know, the nearer your destination, the more you're slip sliding away. This thing is going away from the Conservatives,
Oh.
and a no good week is showing up. So on the 4-day roll, we've got 34-29, which looks stable. 34 Conservative, 29 Liberal, 19 NDP, 4 Green, 8 People's Party,
Whoa.
5 Bloc Québécois. So the 3-day roll has the Liberals at 31. Okay.
Well, as we
And-
always say, campaigns matter.
And, you know, the Conservatives are down from their peak of 37 to 34. It looks to me basically like that's been a straight transfer to the People's Party, and largely in Ontario. And when I say slip sliding away, I say it because the Liberals are leading in Quebec and they're back leading in Ontario by somewhere between 3 and 6 points. And if they're going to win Atlantic Canada, win Quebec, and win Ontario, they're going to form a plurality. They're going to win a plurality of seats.
So David, sorry, on the 3-day roll up, then you said that Liberals are at 31. That means
31.
And the Conservatives are at 34?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Here's what's interesting to me. People's Party, 9% in Alberta, 11% in Ontario.
Remember we speculated about this? I think, Jenny, remember we speculated in the last election, and it didn't happen, the People's Party had the potential to, catch fire and get into double digits in some parts of the country. And it's taken the pandemic, I guess, maybe to unlock that. But that's a big problem for O'Toole.
Yeah, I don't think it's just the pandemic, though. I think that if you look at the images out of this weekend, Bernier was in Manitoba. He did 3 very large events. And I'd say he spoke to more people yesterday himself than all the other campaigns have during this campaign combined. Very large outdoor rallies. And for anyone to classify this as like an anti-vax type protest, obviously is missing the play. There were people sitting in lawn chairs. All these people looked radically normal. And so I think that something has been brewing with the PPC, which I think we've talked about and I've mentioned on the pod in terms of door knocking and what I'm hearing on the ground, that people have not fully comprehended that it's happening. And I think, yes, there could be vaccine passports that obviously is a galvanizing issue, but there's obviously a segment of people, David, especially if they're conservative voters that are going straight to the People's Party, that are unhappy with the campaign and the policies that O'Toole and the Conservatives are putting out.
Well, guns. Let's take this last 5 days on guns. Wouldn't that have caused a few people to leave the Conservative Party to go to the People's Party?
Well, I would think so. Listen, it's also the confusion on guns. So yes, this is yet another. Scott, you said it yesterday, and it was almost like you were writing copy for Justin Trudeau's speech yesterday because
which I was not.
No, I know. I'm teasing. But what maybe he just listens to the pod. But what he said to end up his speech yesterday, Scott, was what you said. Aaron O'Toole, what we are seeing now is what we have all seen in Ottawa, what he has said over the last year. This is a guy who will say literally anything to get elected. You can't trust him. And that was ultimately, in a nutshell, what you said yesterday. And so, but I think it's the truth. So it's not just the fact that the flip-flop on guns, like what was core and fundamental to his leadership campaign, which obviously he cared enough about that it was in his platform, now with an asterisk. When you have to asterisk something in a platform midway through, it's not a good thing. And then it's also the confusion. It's the issues management around guns has almost been worse than the actual issue. As I said yesterday, and I won't belabor it, I laid out, like I had people message me and say, why didn't Aaron say exactly what you said on the podcast yesterday? It made a lot of sense in terms of crime being rising crime, rising gun crime, rising illegal guns into Canada. And so I think that they've turned this into an issue that they didn't need to.
Well, I was saying to you, Jenny, just before we got on the show, I mean, I think it's been 5 days with no message from the Conservative campaign, no proactive, positive message no message that could get you a vote from the Conservative Party for 5 days now. That's a long fucking time. The concept of perception versus reality has always fascinated me. Take Billy Joel, for example. While not considered a badass rock and roller, the perception is he's a moderate-ass rock and roller. The reality is Billy Joel is a Broadway show tuner with an ounce of true rock instinct in him. Now, I'm going to guess most of you think our presenting sponsor, TELUS, is a telecom company, a network carrier. The reality is they're a technology company. Check that, a global technology leader, one with a social purpose. Here's what I mean. More than a dozen years ago, TELUS began investing and innovating in digital technology to revolutionize the healthcare industry. Since then, TELUS Health has become Canada's biggest and frankly most important IT healthcare provider. So, 13 years in the making, and never more crucial than during the pandemic. Virtual healthcare became so important for Canadians wanting to stay safe, doctors trying to care for their patients, and for the hospitals and care centres managing through an unprecedented health crisis. On top of that, TELUS was a critical player in the vaccine booking rollout, and they're transforming the way community healthcare solutions are delivered through their digitally connected Health for Good mobile clinics. It's precisely these kinds of investments that reveal how TELUS is different from the other telcos. They haven't spent their money buying sports teams or doubling down on media properties. Instead, TELUS invests in key industries like healthcare and agriculture with the singular vision of innovating and leveraging technology to improve outcomes for Canadians, to do some good. We're going to talk more about TELUS as a technology company with a social purpose in the next couple of weeks. But for now, you can learn more at TELUS.com. How do you break out of that? Like the news is the protests at the Prime Minister's, for days now, the news is the protests at the Prime Minister's rallies and whatever O'Toole's new position on guns is that day. And how do you break out of that?
You go ahead, Scott, because this is a generic, like this could be any issue. So you go ahead and I'll give my thoughts after.
Yeah. Well, I think you got to fight. I think you got to foster conflict that, I don't think saying something, I don't think a really good announcement works in this environment now. Like you're past that point in the rhythm of this thing. And so in order to get attention and eyeballs, I think you have to generate conflict. TV loves conflict. Reporters love conflict. People love conflict. And they're getting plenty of conflict as they watch the Conservatives wheel around on guns, and then they're getting conflict with the protests. And so I think if you're Aaron O'Toole, the way to generate some kind of message is pick a fight of your choosing with the PM and go after the PM hammer and tong on something. I think that's the only way to go. And I don't think it's enough to do it through creative. I don't think in this situation, because he's in a not getting his message out mode. So I think he himself has to seize the microphone. But reading a page out of his platform and saying today's generic platform announcement is X, that worked fine when you were trying to build a sense of calm and sense of yourself. I've seen people saying that his studio has turned out to be a real blessing and that it's worked. It will not work this week. The studio will not work this week. And so I think he's got to go out and say something that's galvanizing and news driving about Trudeau. I would even.
But what does he say? But what does he say, Scott?
Well,
they've also lost like what I would have said until yesterday afternoon was now is the time to go back on the economy. David's talked about it in the focus groups that he's had. We're hearing about it. People are understand that there's a high level of debt and that they're worried their personal financial security is going to hinge on it. And yesterday, the Toronto Star released their own costing because, of course, the Conservatives haven't released their costing and people were like kind of wondering why they didn't release it. Well, now we know why. The Toronto Star costing is that there's going to be $100 billion of new spending in based on his platform. That's $22 billion more than what the Liberals have. So there is literally no daylight now between the Conservative Party and the Liberals. I don't know. This is a genuine question. What do the Conservatives take him on?
I'm not sure you can be distracted by that story. I'm not sure the Toronto Star story on costing, you can let that slow you down at this moment. I think you still probably have to go back. I think you go on something like CERB, you go on small business, you say this guy, we've seen this many small businesses shuttered. There's no plan to help them get back on their feet. Debt is piling up. I think you go on something like that and try to hit them hard. And if people ask you a question about whether there's X billions of dollars that are unaccounted for in your platform, I think you have to treat that as a Q&A that you bounce off of. But you got to conjure up that anxiety that people have that the economy is not coming back and that Trudeau doesn't know what to do about it. And you do.
Listen,
that's one option.
Well, he's lucky. He's lucky in that the debates come along this week to reset a bit.
Yes.
Or unlucky.
The debates are saving him from this news cycle. Go ahead, Jenny. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Well, or unlucky, depending on the fact that he's going to get, he'll probably get ganged up on, at least on this topic by everyone. Where he's really lucky is that the debate commission decided not to have Maxime Bernier in the debates. That has we said that before. It's turned out to be even more lucky than what we thought 3 weeks ago.
One thing
Singh won't gang up on him, Jenny. Singh won't criticize him. Singh won't say anything about him. Well, Singh will take every opportunity to go wheel on Trudeau. They're disciplined.
Fair. Well, listen, we will see if there's not another shoe to drop on the gun stuff. But this has been a horribly managed issue. Like trust me, I've been part of very good managed issues. I've been part of very poorly managed issues as well. We all have. This is one of the worst I've seen in a campaign, and partly because there is no way going into the campaign, like what we said yesterday, is you're not prepared that you're going to get attacked on guns. We get attacked every election on guns, but this was kind of like. And even though the Liberals released the ads, they seemed very shocked, the Conservative campaign, that all of a sudden the forward attack, like Trudeau was going after them on guns. And to your point, David, so it's first we're going to scrap the OIC which is in the platform of what we've campaigned on, and then we're not going to scrap the OIC, and we're going to have a working group, but the NFA will not be part of the working group. And then the next message is, but maybe at the end of the day, once we do the working group, we're going to scrap the OIC. So is it clear, everyone? That's clear. We're done here.
You know what might be a good attack?
Not one vote in that story. There's only losing votes in that story all over the place. You didn't say anything to anybody to get their vote.
Literally, both sides of the debate are very angry right now.
You know what might be a good play before the debate for the Conservatives, just to try to generate news. And I don't know there's a ton of votes in it, but maybe it resets kind of the dialogue that's happening, is to go on ethics. Like, if we've seen deterioration in the Prime Minister's leadership numbers over the course of the campaign, maybe a smart thing today would be to move off a pure policy and say, here's the CSI diagram of Justin Trudeau in the center, all the people he knows, and we know that some of those associations will be bullshit, but whatever. You just plaster all that. He's this guy, that guy, this guy got this much, this guy got that much. Look at this. There's all kinds of stuff going on. They're throwing your money to their friends and their friends alone. Maybe you hit on something like that because it picks up. First, it forces the PM hopefully to answer a couple questions. Second, it says change. And third, maybe it captures a little bit of that, hey, I'm fucking mad too. That's finding its way into that 11% PP vote in Ontario. I think one thing you don't do for sure, and I think you guys will agree, one thing you don't do.
You could call it We Day, Scott.
Yeah, exactly. Like literally go on something like that. I mean it really. That might be a good, rather than going pure policy. But one thing I don't think you can do is as enormously terrifying as 11% in Ontario is for the People's Party, if you're a conservative, I don't think you can use the broad platform of the campaign and dealing with the mainstream media as your way to try to appeal to those voters. Like, I don't think, you're in too much of a spectrum vice if you start talking to those folks and trying to reclaim them. And so I think you just have to, you got to get Trudeau on his back foot. You've been on your back foot for 5 days, and you got to put him back on his back foot.
But you've outlined a conundrum. I mean, if you're running the Conservative campaign, or certainly if I'm running the Conservative campaign, I'm looking at that 11% PPC vote in Ontario as the key to my victory.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I need those voters. It's the equivalent of they're going to have to employ some type of strategic vote play similar to what the Liberals do with the NDP every election.
But I think
they're
it's
going to have to try to collapse that vote.
The only way I think they can collapse that vote, these people are obviously there. You have a segment that are ideological, and then you have a segment that are people that are upset with all parties. I'm not sure what you do. The only compelling message that you could deliver to these people are, this is your only opportunity to get rid of Justin Trudeau. You guys fucking hate this guy so much. Your only opportunity is this guy.
Yeah.
I'm the only guy that can defeat Justin Trudeau and try to appeal to their dislike of the current prime minister. I don't think there's anything else. There is no nugget in that in the policy platform book. There's no contrast on policy or a wedge issue. Aaron has removed all of those. That was their electoral calculation, probably dismissing that the PPC had room to grow. That's to me the only message they can have. It's Trudeau or it's me. And I know you guys fucking hate this guy.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing. I don't know what else you can do. And the challenge is the psychology of that 11% and the habits of that 11%. I mean, some of them might be virulent anti-vaxxers and they're moved by that because they see Trudeau as the champion of vax. But there's a good chunk of them who aren't going to receive your message, like, I don't know how you reach those people. I don't know what you would say to people because they're just like, sorry, are you another one of those motherfucking politicians coming to ask me for my vote? I don't care if your name's O'Toole or Trudeau or Bill Clinton. I'm again all of you. And so that's that. It's a problem.
So loyal listeners will know I've spent a lot of time here talking about how important safety is to our sponsor, CN. There's a reason for that. Safety at CN is the core value. That might sound like boilerplate, but when you run trains across Canada and the United States 24/7, carrying a significant chunk of the economy on your tracks, stuff gets real. CN's goal, simply put, is to reduce injuries and fatalities to zero. You can't get any more ambitious than that. Every meeting, at every level of the company, begins with a reflection on safety. Everyone is expected to follow the rules. There are a great many rules. And to remind fellow employees who don't, even if the fellow employee is the boss or the boss's boss, all the way up the ladder. That happens, believe me. And of course, CN employees undergo relentless training. There are safety summits. CN spends vast amounts of money on safety technology, some of which I've described here in the past. Each sector of the railway, and there are several given rail's intersection with trucking and marine shipping, has a set of life-critical rules. Those rules are attempts to learn from serious incidents in the past and ensure they're never repeated. They are paramount. CN even has experts who study the science of fatigue and apply it to scheduling and work practices. Because, tired people can get careless. CN's vision is to become the safest railway in North America. That means protecting its employees, its cargoes, and the communities along its network. And just let me take this opportunity to say it once again. If you see a train approaching, stop and let it pass, and stay away from the tracks. I guess you'd call that a life-critical rule. So, last night people threw rocks at the Prime Minister. And, that's not cricket. So, it justifiably is a big news story. What's the impact of this news story? I'm still trying to figure this out. I mean, other than the fact that it's blocking anybody from getting a message out because it's dominating, what is the impact of this? Are people watching this and turning and associating it with the Conservatives? the way Trudeau wants them to?
I don't think so. It was a sea of PPC signs if they're going to associate it with anyone. I don't think anyone's looking at it seriously. And the Liberals shouldn't even go down that road. It's obviously not organized by it's obviously not organized. I don't think it's organized by anyone. You could have different PPC campaigns possibly organizing different things, but I don't think any party is doing it. It would be a stretch to say. And I think it's awful. I think that anyone that throws rocks or anything at the Prime Minister should be arrested, but I don't think it's going to change the outcome of the election in any way.
I think three things about it. One, I think I'm not sure you need to associate it with the Conservatives in order to have it be beneficial to the Liberals, which sounds very reptilian. I know I'm, saying, oh, it's beneficial to the Liberals to have rocks thrown at their leader's head, and I'm not. It's for the purposes of what's the electoral impact. I mean, obviously on a human level, it's awful. First, I think it's the point you said, David, right? Which is that at a time when the Conservatives need to reset their campaign slightly, it prohibits you from doing that because all you can really do if this is the dominant news story is stand in a microphone and say, listen, it's really terrible and this is the way we should conduct ourselves. And no one gives a fuck. Like that's for sure the third quote that's in the story because first you get the protesters, second you get the PM and his retinue reacting, and then you get that. So that doesn't get you anywhere. The second thing I think about it is that I think it does signal we can talk about whether, in the Catholic Protestant debates in the early 1900s were way worse or Brian Mulroney and all that stuff. But it signals to people, wow, there's some kind of fundamental argument happening here that seems to be a little different than a typical election campaign. And I think in a weird way that galvanizing notion probably helps the Liberals consolidate some of their vote, tells people there's a different set of stakes here, and that may help the PM. Certainly, I think it probably dilutes the NDP. But the third thing is I think it helps the People's Party. Like I just think this stuff, I think as people condemn it, I think that people who are watching this going, yeah, but I'm as mad as those guys, that 11% or 13% you tell me what the ceiling is. I think they say, you're fucking wrong. I feel just as mad as those people. And I'm watching everybody in the political class come on and condemn it. Well, I don't feel like it should be condemned. I think those sons of bitches ought to pay a price and ought to be screamed at. And so I think that actually helps the People's Party.
Do you think that the People's Party should be getting more media coverage in this campaign, or are the media right to ignore them, essentially?
Well, I think if they're sitting at 11% in the polls, like it's as I said before, if media and if politicians and chattering class dismiss that these are a group of anti-vaxxers, they're completely wrong, and they're going to be surprised on election day if the trajectory stays this way.
I think the media is starting to pay attention to them, and maybe not.
But there's a fear of legitimizing them, right? In the coverage, like the media don't want to legitimize this thing by, I think you'd really think twice about doing a PPC momentum story on the CBC News, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but who are the media? The media are supposed to report facts. It's not their job to justify what Canadians see. Their job is to report facts, and the fact is thousands of people went out to see Maxime Bernier in the province of Manitoba yesterday. The day before that, there were thousands of people in Kelowna, BC. He's polling at 11% in Ontario, 9% in Alberta, according to EKOS. So the media, it's not the media's fucking job to decide what we do and do not see. It's their job to report actually what's going on. And that's my feeling on the whole thing.
I don't see any evidence that they are censoring themselves, that they are editorializing how they cover this thing. I don't think that the People's Party has really emerged on people's radar screens until these last few days. As you've seen larger rallies, they're getting covered. Now we're going to see that their numbers are rising in the polls. They're getting covered. When we see the protests, you'll often see that the news coverage will cut from the protest to something about People's Party because the signs are in there and because people are wondering, well, is there that organic connection and what does that say? So I don't really detect a lot of media going, oh, I think I have to do the responsible thing and ignore this thing that's unfolding in front of me. They stay at 11%. They're going to continue to get coverage. But as Jenny said, Jesus, Murphy, boy, O'Toole should thank his lucky stars that Bernier isn't in that debate.
Yeah. Yeah, it's looking like a dubious decision, frankly.
Yes. Yeah, that's right, actually.
So.
It's a shitty decision. Like everything, the stupid fucking debates commission touches. The worst, it is going to. I have a feeling we're going to have to put toothpicks in our eyes to watch the train wreck that the two debates are going to be this week, which will be a plus for Aaron as well.
Well, David, you're the statistician and researcher, but with 17 moderators, isn't there a good mathematical chance that one of them will be a People's Party supporter? Isn't that what the polls would tell us? So maybe it works out.
Well, the journalists are going to get more time than the politicians in the debate, so good times. Okay, time for the Daily Curse. Who's up?
I'll start. I'm going to echo. Scott, I think, did one of these last week. I'm going to echo it to all you pollsters. Give us fucking regional numbers. This is when we all need to hear regional numbers, or tease us, like just give us a sample of like a riding here or there to just let us know what kind of the regional. We know that we get the national numbers. We're trying to boil them down, but at this point in the campaign, in terms of to see where things really are, we need provincial numbers. We need regional numbers, and if you throw in like a riding number, I'll be forever grateful.
Well, Frank is going to raise his sample sizes in a big way because he thinks the campaign's kind of dynamic and he wants to return to a 3-day roll, but he wants bigger samples. So maybe you'll get your wish out of EKOS. We'll see ultimately what kind of sample sizes they end up running. Scott, you got a Daily Curse.
Yeah, my Daily Curse is for the Conservatives. You know what? Your war room, you've run your if we were talking about a restaurant, your front of house has been a good campaign. How you presented your leader, calmness, we got a plan, all that, that's worked pretty well. But that was Act 1, right? The back of house now, to mix my metaphors, the back of house now, war room, what have you got, op watch. Now's a good time to pull out a Gatling gun. You have gone, as you said, David, 4 or 5 days without a message. And so the war room could stand to help its leader out a little bit. Give the leader something to work with. Give them a shitty Liberal candidate. Give them a bad interview tape. Something that makes Trudeau answer a question other than what's it like to have stones thrown at you. So, as they regroup and go into these debates and hope that they can reset, give your boss a bat to play with. That's your job, War Room.
Excellent. For sure it is. All right, my curse goes out to Prime Minister Trudeau. And you've fought well and stalled the Conservative momentum, started to roll it back. Still haven't developed any momentum of your own. The debates are a chance to do that. The one word I would encourage you to have in your head as you go through the debates is humility. Humility. People do not want you to be triumphant. They do not want this election to be an endorsement of you, but they are going to be prepared to vote for you if you let them do it. So let them feel better about it. Show humility. Show that you've learned something from being down to 28% in the polls in this campaign, and hide all of the arrogance that people can find in you when you're feeling good about yourself. So humility, word of the day. Okay, team. I want to thank, obviously, all the cursed who are listening to us today. Obviously, want to thank you two guys for being here at 6:30 in the morning.
David, thank you for having us.
Big throw cushion of a man, you.
I would like to thank our presenting sponsor, TELUS, and our sponsor, CN Rail. And I'd obviously like to thank Nick Taylor-Vasey and Politico for their support in this effort, and Frank Graves and EKOS for their daily access to their numbers. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you again tomorrow morning. Take care of yourselves.